Hello, my name is Alexa, and my Module 1 presentation is on predicting success on TikTok, which is a popular social media site where people post videos and often they generate income from these videos. So these are some of our variables, and our y is income. To start off, we can look at the bivariate regression. We can see the equation over here that represents it, and we can see over here that we reject the null hypothesis for x6, meaning that x6 does have a significant impact on our dependent variable. Something to note about regression models is that we are looking to assess the influence of these predictors on our outcome variable, and that is the main purpose of them. But continuing on, we can look for outliers in this initial scatter plot, and we can see that there's nothing that immediately stands out here. But we can continue on to these diagnostics, and we can see that for these first three plots, everything looks relatively normal. But over here, we can see that 178 is an outlier, and this does have a bit of a suspicious shape. So we can continue to look at Cook's distance to assess the influence of these outliers and see that 178 is standing out. The residuals do look normally distributed, however, but when we do a heteroscedasticity test, we can see that it does have this shape that indicates to us that there may be heteroscedasticity. We can continue to a multivariate regression, and as Frieden pointed out, regression equations, just by themselves don't help in necessarily controlling for confounding variables, so we do need to be aware of that going forward. And as Skielsa pointed out, one of the predictors in a model could be more important than the other, so it is important to judge each of the predictors and their importance. I think that's very relevant in this example with TikTok. For instance, X2 or X3 might have an impact on income more than another one. And a great point that Abelson brought up was that you have to be aware of some of the systematic differences, in skill level. So he used the batting average example, but in my situation, there might be fundamental differences in creativity, and that creativity may affect the type of videos you make, which may just generate more, views and likes and comments based off of that. And so these are things that we have to consider. But continuing on, we can look for outliers, and we can see that there is really no relationship in these two, and we can see the outlier over here. We can continue to our diagnostics and see that there is no relationship here. And we can see that in the QQ plot there is kind of the same thing. Also, the same goes for this plot, and we can see that 198 is an outlier here. And going back to the predictors, we can see that x2 and x3 we do reject the null hypothesis, but for x1 we do not. So that may be telling us that x2 and x3 have more of an impact on our dependent variable, which I think is important to keep in mind once we continue looking at these plots. So we can look at Cook's distance and see that 198 is in fact an outlier. When we look at the residuals, this is definitely not normally distributed, and we can see that there's an outlier here. And when we do a heteroscedasticity test, we can see that this outlier here is definitely skewing this plot. All of our data is over here, and the outlier is there, and again, no relationship between these two. So when we take out 198 as a data point, we can see that this QQ plot does look curvilinear now, and we can see over here that we no longer have 198. The only outlier right here that it stands out is 13. So this is a data point that may also be skewing the model, but for now we just took out 198. So when we take out 198, we can look at Cook's distance and see the influence of other outliers better. And the conclusion that we come up with when we take out 198 as a data point is that, it may have been making our data seem more correlated than it actually was. So for instance, VIF for X2 and X3 turns out higher when the outlier is taken out. So this was definitely a data point that was causing issues and skewing our model. And that is all I have for Module 1. Thank you.